Hey guys, welcome back to the MCU HQ, and this is going to be my spoiler review for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So if you have not yet seen Multiverse of Madness, go watch Multiverse of Madness, and then come back and watch this, because I will be spoiling just about every key aspect of the movie, from the story, to the villain, to the cameos, to some of the different worlds we see. So if you don't want to know any of that, leave. If you've already seen the movie or you don't care, welcome. First thing I want to talk about, I was going to wait to talk about them till later, but I feel like I gotta get it out of the way. The Illuminati in this movie, also known as the cameo sequence, because it's where every cameo in the movie happens. There are a lot less cameos than people thought, and that's why in my non-spoiler review I said, that's why I said don't let your speculation become expectation. Because otherwise you're going to be disappointed, because there is a lot less cameos than people thought, which I actually respect. They kept it focused on Doctor Strange and Wanda Maximoff. It's still a Doctor Strange story. So the cameos were few and they were relevant to the plot. And we had our 6 members of the Illuminati, and it was nuts. So I'm going to talk about them in the order they were introduced. So first off, there's Mordo, who starts out, and it's like, oh, he's a good guy in this universe, although if you've seen the trailers, he ain't a good guy in this universe. So he's there, and he's like, what's up? Anyway, knocks Strange and the Cloak of Levitation, and America Chavez knocks him out, takes him to the Illuminati, says the Illuminati will see you now, because he sounds so badass.
The Illuminati will see you now.
And then I noticed they hype up the reveal of each Illuminati member. Each member gets more hype. So it starts out, the shield goes, and then it comes back. He's like, Captain Carter, the first Avenger, and they play the Captain America theme, and there's Haley Atwell, who would have been nice if, we knew she was in it because of the poster. Would have been nice if there wasn't any trailer footage of her in it. And then it goes on to the next guy. It says, Black Bolt, Keeper of the Terrigen Mist, leader of the Inhumans, and it's Anson Mount from the Inhumans TV show that is so bad. It's awful. But he and Ewan Rayon, who played Maximus, they were the only good parts in that show, and I'm glad that they didn't recast Black Bolt. He deserved a second shot. He felt like one of the only people there that was actually trying to make something good. Also, I kind of accidentally wore the perfect shirt for this, because it looks like multiple things coming together. Right? And so the camera just pans over to him. Then Mordo says, Captain Marvel, something about the cosmos, and it goes over, and then the mask comes back to reveal it's not Brie Larson, it's Lashana Lynch, right? Every person gets more and more hype. And the Captain Marvel makes no sense on the Illuminati, because so here's why the Illuminati exists, right? The Illuminati covers all the bases. So in the comics you have Iron Man, who, money. He also is the representative from the Avengers. Then you have Xavier, who's the guy from the X-Men. Reed Richards represents Fantastic Four and science. Namor is Atlantis. Doctor Strange is the Mystic Arts, and Black Bolt's the Inhumans. And every once in a while, Black Panther shows up to represent Wakanda. So they really cover all their bases there. Captain Marvel, I feel like, is only in this because they thought it would be cool to have an alternate version of Captain Marvel that was not played by Brie Larson. And somehow this version is still also the most boring character. I think she was the worst member of the Illuminati. She just wasn't exciting at all. And then it gets insane, and the theater was quiet during the entire movie until that scene when he says, smartest man alive, Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four. He comes in, turns around, John friggin' Krasinski is Mr. Fantastic. And I will say, for the smartest guy alive, he sure is stupid. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And then the last one, they start talking, and you hear, we should tell him the truth. And he comes in on his yellow wheelchair, and the X-Men, the 90s X-Men theme is playing. And I'm like, oh. I do wish that they didn't release that one TV spot that had both Captain Carter and Xavier's yellow wheelchair. That gave away too much. That also had Wanda clearly as the villain. We're going to talk about Wanda in a minute. But the Illuminati all die horrible deaths. And when I say that I'd be shocked if there was not an R-rated cut of this movie, it's basically for the 10 minutes that ensue from the moment Wanda gets to the Illuminati base to when they all escape to the Book of Vishanti. Because what happens is they're like, ah, crap, we'll vote after we go deal with Wanda. And they probably should have listened to Doctor Strange, because he's like, you can't win, like, we can't beat her. And they're like, nah, don't worry, we can. Friggin' egomaniacs over there. And they get there, and it's the most insane bloodbath. And so Mr. Fantastic is supposed to be the smartest man on Earth. And he tells Wanda exactly how to beat Black Bolt. He just straight up tells her, this is Black Bolt right here, this guy. He can kill you with just a whisper. Do with that information as you will. So then she just kills Black Bolt by sewing his mouth shut, and he blows his own head up. And then Captain Carter and Captain Marvel are smart, and they decide to flank Wanda to take her from the sides. Mr. Fantastic just reaches right down the middle and turns into spaghetti. I'm like, you absolute moron. You told her how to defeat Black Bolt. You opened yourself up for attack. And then the funny thing is, Captain Carter is the weakest member of the group. And she does the most damage because she was actually smart. She used smoke to her advantage. She flanked Wanda. She was like, she actually used her shield as a shield and not just as a weapon. She used it to block Wanda up until she was really slow because she threw it like that. And it took her forever to come back around, at which point the shield just cut her in half. But she dealt the most damage because she was actually smart. And she's the least powerful member of the team, but yeah, then Captain Carter gets cut in half. And the thing in my non-spoiler review that I said they clearly cut away before it could get too graphic is you see the shield go into the wall and blood starts dripping off it, and it cuts away almost instantly. I'm like, yeah, you guys tampered with that shot so it was more kid-friendly. And then Captain Marvel, I was a bit confused on her death. Did Wanda take her power? Because they were fighting in midair. Captain Marvel was really putting up a fight, I will say. Even though she was the most boring member of the team, in my opinion, because she just doesn't have any personality. You know, Black Bolt is cool on team because, like, we're finally seeing Black Bolt, so that's awesome. Mr. Fantastic, of course, awesome. Xavier, awesome. Captain Carter, I just like that character. So I think Captain Marvel was still insanely boring. She was just as boring as she was in the movie and in Avengers Endgame, but she was kicking some ass there for a few minutes, and I was unclear. I think Wanda must have siphoned her powers, because I remember her mask was, like, fading away, and then she got crushed by that statue of someone, and it's like, she had the least violent death, but all of those deaths, like Wanda, I saw a comment this morning saying that Wanda now holds all of the top 5 spots for most graphic kills. And it gets better, because that sequence, the moment she gets to the base, like I said, till they escape to the Book of Ashanti is just whack. Because then what happens is she's this close to America, and Xavier's like, I am here now. And he goes into her mind, and Xavier is about to free the other Wanda from the spell, and then red smoke comes up, and zombie Wanda just comes up from behind him. Crack! Kills Xavier. I was like, well, shit, they didn't last very long, did they? And so many people hate it. They're like, what a waste of those characters. What a waste of the Illuminati. What a waste of those cameos. I watched it. I was like, carnage. And yeah, it gets so horrific. Like, the movie is actually a psychedelic horror movie. It is the darkest thing Marvel's done. Parents, if there's any parents watching this, don't take your kid. Don't take your little kid unless they can really handle it, because there are some very little kids in the theater, and I was like, I feel sorry for you guys, because there's some parts in this movie. It was the one of her chasing him through the hallway while limping, covered in blood and oil, and then the one where she was reaching through the reflections, and then she crawled through that one mirror like it was from The Ring. Yeah, I liked that the horror elements were there. It wasn't overpowering, but they were there. It was clear they got like a master of psychedelic horror, Sam Raimi, to come in, and they're like, just do that. Because, I mean, you watch Evil Dead, you watch the hospital sequence in Spider-Man 2, the dude is good at doing this stuff. And it's when it goes horror, it just goes pure Sam Raimi. And that's what I love. I love some of that Raimi flair. Let's talk about alternate universes, because there's a surprisingly little amount of multiverses in this movie. They keep it focused. We go to 3 main universe, or I guess 4 if you count wherever the Book of Vishanti is as a universe. But we go to 3 main universes. We're in the MCU. We're at the one where the Illuminati are, which is 838. So 616, 838, and then whatever the one is at the end where Sinister Strange is. Those are the 3 main universes we go to. And so really the Multiverse Madness part of the movie comes in the 30 to 45 second part after they escape Kamar-Taj and Strange and America Chavez are just flying through the multiverse, and we see all sorts of fun universes. In the final battle, we see Mustafar, and then I wrote down some of my favorite ones. So we see the animated world, which I thought we were spending more time, and I thought we were going to be in the animated world for a minute. We see the dinosaur world. We see the one where they turn to blocks. That was nuts. And then my personal favorite, Paint World. Why couldn't we see more of Paint World? They're hyping up Paint World too, because then they get to the 838 where you go on red in this world. You go on red, you stop on green. And they have pizza balls. And I'm like, Paint World was cooler. They said it's nuts when you get trapped in Paint World. I wanted them to get trapped in Paint World. I think obviously they have to focus on those 3 universes for the plot, but I do wish we had some time to just sit in a couple other universes. We don't see that many universes in the movie called Multiverse of Madness. There is multiverses, there is madness, but I don't think the 2 words work together as one title because we only see 3 universes, 2 of which are pretty damn normal, and one of them is nuts, and that's the one Sinister Strange is in. So I'm like, I just saw Paint World 2 seconds ago. I want to go back there. But 838 was a beautiful looking universe. It was very realistic. It felt like something you were going to see Spider-Man 2099 swing by at any moment. And then the plants growing all over everything. That was a beautiful universe. I would live there. Doctor Strange did my man Papa Pizza Papa dirty. I know it was an Evil Dead reference, but damn, Steven. 3 weeks? How did he not die? And then Sinister Strange World, which is so cool, because that's the incursion, and you have the universes falling apart, and it's that melting effect from What If, where they're kind of just oozing away, and you just see the Sanctum Sanctorum tearing apart, and Strange gets to walk up the steps. I'd say, honestly, that was the creepiest part of the movie. I mean, the scariest parts were pretty much anything with Wanda, but I'd say the creepiest moment of the movie, the most eerie feeling part, is when he had to walk up the steps of Sinister Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum. That whole sequence was awesome. I cannot wait to rewatch it. We're going to talk more about the music fight, but that's something I definitely look forward to rewatching. Just that little sequence in particular is so cool. Doctor Strange in this movie has a pretty nice arc. They touch a lot on him being lonely, which definitely factors in, but the big thing of his story is that he has to be the one holding knife. He always has to be the one in control. And they do this cool thing right off the bat in the movie where they make that other doctor I'm pretty sure that's the doctor who was with Christine in the first one, isn't anymore. He said to Strange, after he talked about losing his cats and losing his brother during the blip, he said, "Was there another way?" And Strange says, "No, I made the only play we had." And the genius part of that is that it makes the audience question something. Ever since we saw Infinity War, we have been taking the 1 out of 14,605 odds at face value because it's Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange knows all. If there's a character who knows something, it's Doctor Strange. And this movie, in its first 10 minutes, makes us question if he actually knows all, and makes us begin to think that Doctor Strange may not be so trustworthy. And then they also do the thing where he always has to be the one holding the knife. He always thinks he's got this. Makes him feel good. He's a very ego-driven person. And then that's how the spell went wrong in No Way Home. Because Doctor Strange, he's like, yeah, no, don't worry. This spell that can break the multiverse, I'll do it. We're fine. And then he blames Peter Parker for his own mistakes, right? That's what Doctor Strange does. And they do that in this movie. And immediately they make the audience say, Doctor Strange is not as good of a guy as I've been thinking he is. And that comes in when he reads the Darkhold and Dreamwalks. They are saying the entire time throughout the movie, here's what we have throughout the movie. We have Defender Strange tries to take America's power because he's like, no one cares about you. It's just your power they want, right? He's very emotionally detached from people. That's another thing. So he's trying to take America's power, and he does the grand calculus of the multiverse line like he did in Spider-Man. And then we have the Strange from 838 who read the Darkhold and Black Bolt had to kill him. We have the Sinister Strange who lost everything and his whole universe is caving in on itself and he's just guarding the Darkhold. And the whole thing is that this is how every Strange operates. They are all the same. And Doctor Strange keeps assuring people, he's not like that. And Wanda's the real problem. He's not the real problem. And then the movie culminates with Doctor Strange being exactly like all of them. He reads the Darkhold. He dreamwalks into a corpse and has to fight off a bunch of demons. Sure, he's doing it for good reasons. But that's what every Doctor Strange does. So it's cool, and that's something I noticed more on the second time, because I waited until I saw the movie a second time before I did my spoiler review so I could pick up on more things. And that's something I really paid attention to, was I really tried to hone in on Doctor Strange's arc in this movie and really follow it and pick up on all the little tidbits they're talking about. And that's literally what it is. They spend 2 hours telling the audience that Doctor Strange is not as good of a guy as you think he is. And even though he's a hero, and at the end, he does do the thing of America Chavez can solve this problem. I don't need to do everything, which we'll touch on in a bit, about America Chavez and Wanda and all that. It is the thing, you come out of this movie, if you trust Doctor Strange at the end of this movie, you will clearly not paying attention. Because what they have now established is that the universe's most powerful man is not to be trusted. And there's a couple action scenes I want to talk about. The octopus fight I want to talk about, mainly because that's probably the coolest display of Doctor Strange's abilities. It's also so long. 2-hour movie, they could have cut some of that and probably put some other stuff in maybe. But whatever, I don't know whether it's in the 30 minutes, but I do want to see those 30 minutes. If they released an extended cut, which they won't, I would watch it. If they released an R-rated extended cut of this movie, I would watch it. Friggin' allergies, man, kicking my ass. But yeah, so we have the octopus fight, and it's like the moment where you know it's going full Sam Raimi, because it starts out pretty normal. And then they're doing this octopus fight, and Strange is he looks so badass flying around with the cape. That cloak has saved so many people, and Wong's coming in and Wong's fighting it, and they're flying around the entire block that this octopus is on. And I remember there was one really cool shot where America was under Gargantos, and Gargantos just spun around and stared right at her. I was like, oh boy. I think she just shit herself. And then Doctor Strange releases these 2 giant hands, and they rip a lamppost out of the ground and shove it through the monster's eye. And then he pulls it out and it takes the eye out of its socket. I was like, that's the Sam Raimi I know. And the other fight I loved was the music fight. And the music fight's cool because it shows the full capacity of what these wizards could do, because it so often is just them being throwing lasers and just throwing little whips and shields around and light stuff. And this was the one where it's oh yeah, they can pretty much just do anything they want. And he hits the piano, and it's a great setup, I feel. He hits the piano and you see all the sheet music flying around. And then he's like, I can use that. And you see all the notes lift up off the page. He's throwing them at Sinister Strange. And I originally thought Sinister Strange making the music staff to stop it. Well, that makes sense because that's what music is on. So if you need something to stop music notes, you're just going to instinctively think of the music staff. And he throws it back. And the music changes every time one of them throws it. That was so cool. And then the harp. The harp was so funny because they have this giant ball now with music notes with the Darkhold right in the middle, and both Stranges are holding on. And Doctor Strange just does this and flicks one note out of the harp and then just gone. And yeah, then Sinister Strange flies out the window and gets impaled. So Doctor Strange is breaking the Hippocratic Oath like it's his job. He doesn't care about that oath anymore. And there are 4 Stranges in this movie. Sinister Strange was hands down my favorite Doctor Strange. He sounded so cool. He looked so cool. I want to see more of him. For a second, I thought he was What If Doctor Strange, because the universe was tearing apart in the same way. But no, because Strange Supreme from What If is trapped in that little orb watching over another orb. He's in a pocket universe watching over a pocket universe. It's nuts. But so it's not the same one. And but I loved him so much. I was wondering why his fingers weren't black, because if your fingers get black when you read the Darkhold and he's been guarding the Darkhold, why were his fingers not black? Unless they were and I just missed it. And then we have Defender Strange, who then becomes Zombie Strange. And Defender Strange, they make it sound like he's supposed to be the most powerful Doctor Strange, and he just gets killed by a thing. I can't remember what the name of that monster is. I'm so upset. Yeah, he gets killed right off the bat. He says, in the grand calculus of the multiverse, your sacrifice means much more than your life, and gets impaled. And that's the same thing Doctor Strange said to Spider-Man in No Way Home when he had to send the villains back. So all the Stranges are the same. It's all connected. And then we have the Strange from 838, who reads the Darkhold, and then they kill him after they kill Thanos. And then, yeah, Zombie Strange, which is just Defender Strange that our Doctor Strange dreamwalks into so he could go back into the MCU even though he doesn't have. So what happens, they actually set it up in a really cool way. Because Wanda uses America's power to open the portal and sends Christine and Strange through it, then takes America back into the MCU so she can siphon her power to have her kids back. And so they're stranded, and so his thing is, he's like, well, I can dreamwalk. And Christine's like, yeah, but you need to have one of you in your universe. He's like, yeah, but they didn't say they have to be alive. And you see Defender Strange rise up out of the grave, and then Doctor Strange has to fight off all the little souls of the damned inside him. He forms him into a cloak and he flies back in. It's such an unconventional third act in this movie, and I like it. I like that they're like, this is a Sam Raimi Marvel third act. It's not the normal third act we're used to. It is bonkers. It's wild. It's so good. You get the horror elements. It's also just badass. It's a cool fight scene. The way America kicks Wanda's ass, just punching the portals across her face, like, that was cool. With that, let's talk about Wanda for a minute. So this picks up sometime after WandaVision, and it starts out, she's a villain right away. And she's like, why don't you bring America here? And then Strange looks at her and she's like, you never told me your name. And she just does that, and you just see everything goes away, and it's all been an illusion. And it's all decimated. Everything is burned. The sky is red. She's corrupted by the Darkhold. Her fingers are all black. And she's like, I'm going to get her. I'm going to take her powers. I'm going to get my kid. If you don't give her up by sunrise, it's not Wanda that comes for her. It's the Scarlet Witch. At which point we get the Battle of Kamar-Taj that happens about an hour and a half earlier than I thought it was going to happen. But alas, Battle of Kamar-Taj happens. And you have to watch WandaVision to get the Wanda's story in this. If you've not watched WandaVision, I feel sorry for you. You're probably not going to like this movie. But it does pick up after that. And some people were complaining. They said, Wanda was a good guy at the end of WandaVision. You clearly didn't watch the same WandaVision that everyone else did, because she was very clearly not. She was in a gray area at the end of WandaVision. Then the post-credits scene is her reading the Darkhold. It's pretty obvious where that story's gonna go, and I like that this doesn't waste any time getting to that. I do wish we probably could have had a bit more time to sit with Wanda before the reveal, but on the other hand, it's nice to know 10 minutes into this movie, we know our hero, we know our villain, we know the main story. It's such a simple story for such a complex idea, which I love. They're jumping through the multiverse, and you're like, oh, that's gonna be hard to keep up with. But it's not, because they have this very simple story. Doctor Strange has to protect America Chavez from Wanda Maximoff. That's it. There's really no question about what the story in this movie is. The twists and turns and stuff along the way are nice, but I like that that Michael Waldron and Sam Raimi and Marvel didn't have their heads so far up their own ass where they were like, we can do whatever we want, it's the multiverse. Like, no. Just a simple story, because the best stories are the simplest stories. And Elizabeth Olsen's performance from start to finish was stellar. It's one of the best performances in the MCU. That first moment when it first reveals that she's evil and she's like talking to Strange, all the way up through the end when she's crying when she sees her kids and they see her as a monster, which, let's talk about that. Because people will be quick to be like, well, why didn't she just go to a universe where they didn't see her just beating the shit out of a teenager? Because it doesn't work that way. Because what happened in that moment is Wanda realized everything she's been doing for months has been to get her children back. She's been trying to get America's power. She's been reading the Darkhold. She's been figuring out how to dreamwalk this entire time so she can see her kids. And so finally, when she has what she wants, they see her as a monster. And she even tries, there's a nice callback to the line. Earlier in the movie, she says to Strange, "I'm not a monster, I'm a mother." She says that at Kamertage. And then at the end, her kids are freaking out and they're calling for their Wanda to come help them. And she says, they're like, "It's a monster." And she says, "I'm not a monster, I'm," and stops. She doesn't say, "I'm a mother." Because it hits her right then. She's like, "Oh shit, I am a monster. I'm the villain. I have been killing people. I have been trying to kill this kid. I've been trying to take these kids from their mom." And that's why she ends up sacrificing herself at the end, because it hits her. She's like, "It doesn't matter where I go." Because it's a line America says about like living with herself or something along those lines. And it's like, yeah, Wanda can't live with herself because now she knows that her kids view her as a monster. And no matter how the story plays out for her, she will always remember that her kids see her as a monster. And her performance is stellar throughout the entire film, but I do think the absolute best moment of it is when she looks so creepy at that end. Her eyes are all black, her hair's messy, hot, crazy, scales off the charts, and she just falls to her knees and just starts crying. And other Wanda comes up to her and says, "No, they'll be loved." And then America closes the portal, and that's when Wanda's like, "I gotta destroy the Darkhold now." She's got nothing left to lose, essentially, because she also does think Vision's dead. And this is why I don't think Wanda's dead. She brings the temple down on herself. And a lot of people are like, "Yeah, well, she probably just, like, found a way to get out of there. She can, tamper with reality." I'm like, yeah, but her whole story, her redemption at the end is her realizing she is a monster, so she sacrificed herself so no one can ever do what she did. But the fact that Vision's still alive leads me to believe Wanda's still alive, because why bring Vision back if you're just going to kill Wanda off? But on the other hand, how the hell do you even redeem Wanda at this point? And she did so much evil in this movie that no matter what happens in the future, everyone's just going to remember that, right? So her death does work out very well for the story, and she seems like someone who is always destined to be the villain. She started as a villain. She's always accidentally killing a bunch of people, and she ends as a villain. It's kind of how it feels like she's been destined to be. And also, this whole movie and What If have just been, and Loki for that matter, have just been reaffirming the notion that the MCU is the crappiest universe to live in. I mean, think, in one of the other universes, Loki is a good guy, Sylvie. And then, she goes bad, but she started out with great intentions. There's universes where the entire universe is living in harmony. The MCU is the only one where Wanda doesn't have a family. Like, the main timeline's the worst timeline. It could not get any worse. Well, I guess maybe the whole universe could collapse in on itself. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's part of what they're going for in Doctor Strange 3. And America Chavez is a plot device in this movie. A lot of people like this character. To me, she was so boring. I feel like she didn't have a character. She didn't have a personality. She was just there to further both Strange and Wanda's stories, which was very disappointing. But Xochitl Gomez did good in the movie, I feel. And I hope in the future they can do something with her. She better not get too OP, because she can punch through the multiverse and she's learning to be a sorcerer. I call bullshit on that. And in my non-spoiler review, I touched on the pacing of this movie being kind of screwed up. And having seen it twice now, after the half-hour mark, the pacing smooths out, definitely. Once they cross into 838, it smooths out. But that first, act is so rushed, in my opinion, because we go Defender Strange, and then trying to get America's powers, and then he dies, and he gets sucked through a universe, and then we cut to Strange waking up, and then there's the wedding. And the wedding sets up his whole arc and what's going on. Then we go out into the streets immediately for the octopus fight, and the octopus fight is long. And then from the octopus fight, they go get food, And they're talking about Spider-Man. They're catching viewers up on what exactly has been happening with the multiverse at the time. They introduce America Chavez, and then they touch on what dreams really mean, and then they bury Defender Strange so they can have a Chekhov's gun and bring him back later. Then he goes to get Wanda, and then it's revealed that Wanda's evil, and then we go straight to the Battle of Kamar-Taj. I'm like, we're moving a bit fast here. There's too much stuff happening in such a short time frame. But after that battle, and once they cross into 838, the pacing of this movie smooths out, definitely. And then the last thing I just want to talk about is the post-credit scenes. So we have the first one, which is Strange has his third eye now because he read the Darkhold, and it's really weird to have the last scene of the movie be him in horror over having this third eye, and then the next scene he's chill with his third eye. It's really, that was a very weird choice to have those two scenes play right back to back with each other. But then Charlize Theron's there as Clea, who is basically the Sorcerer Supreme of the Dark Dimension, ends up marrying Doctor Strange, and they have a whole romance, and she's like, you caused an incursion. We gotta fix it. And she just literally cuts a hole through the fabric of reality, and they cross into the Dark Dimension, and that's where that story ends. So the fact they caused an incursion, which means universe coming in on each other, it leads me to believe a couple things. First off, obviously Clea is coming, and two, we might finally see 616 Mordo again. The MCU was coined as Earth 616, which means it's a separate multiverse from the comics. And Mordo has just been vibing. They keep saying he's like, yeah, Mordo's been trying to kill me for years. I'm like, we have not seen Mordo since he was like, Strange, I just don't want to do this anymore. I'm just going to leave. But now that Strange is literally killing universes, oh yeah, Mordo's coming back in number 3, baby. And then the last credit scene was genius. It was, we catch up with Bruce Campbell, still punching himself in the face, then it stops, looks at the camera, says, it's over, and then it's over. And that's it. That's really all I wanted to go over in spoilers. Just some major things there that I really want to talk about with this movie. It is a good movie. I liked it more the second time. A lot of my issues are still there, but there are some things I picked up on that I do think are cool. Strange's arc is great. Wanda, of course, great. And I think if the first, act of this movie was paced better, this would be the upper echelon of MCU movies. But unfortunately, we don't have that luxury. So what did you guys think of Multiverse of Madness? Let me know your spoiler thoughts down in the comments below. Also leave a like on this video, subscribe, click on the bell icon to receive all notifications from the MCU HQ. That's going to be it. Have a great day, guys.